Let's switch this over to the camera. How are you this evening, Thursday, May 17th? This is the Go Cell Phone Repair Thursday night hangout. We do this a couple times a week, once on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then also, as you can see from that little deal over there, we do it on Mondays also, 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Once again for West Coast time, so adjust accordingly depending on where you're at. Yes, I've got this thing sitting in front of me because it's the one of the maneuvers I had to make in order to get decent sound. So until I can get off of USB mics and get my good microphone attached, well, sorry, maybe we'll put a bigger lower third down here. In any case, this week we're going to be talking about a big win, well, a win, 1 out of 3 so far for net neutrality. It has passed the Senate. That's exciting, at this point, I think we'll take whatever we can get. The Essential phone will be working on a way to eliminate the notch. Yes, they're already figuring out how to get rid of the notch. And if you didn't already know this, Essential came out with the notch before any other manufacturer. We just didn't hear much about it because they're not a huge company. They're not one of the big two. But yes, it was them first. Red Hydrogen 1 holographic phone may be available soon at AT&T and or Verizon. We'll see about that. They're still kind of talking about whether or not that's going to happen for sure. Apple's co-founder Steve Wozniak commenting that we have lost our privacy. That's it. It's done. No more privacy. Sorry, guys. But it's kind of inevitable, I think. As we look at the way that technology works today, good luck having anything be private anymore. A phone tracking firm had a bug that let anyone track millions of Americans. Just all you had to do was know their phone number and you could figure out exactly where they were. And this is kind of freaky if you think about it, especially when we talk about privacy while we're on that topic. Samsung ad mocking iPhone X's notch and the headphone dongle, and Samsung just can't stop talking about Apple. That's a weird thing. I think it would be in their best interest if they found a different way to advertise their product, but that's just my opinion. Vape pen explosion pierces a Florida man's cranium and kills him. A vape pen. Scary stuff. Also, we have leaked, if you want to call them that. I'm going to start doing this every time I say leaked pics of the U12 from HTC or the HTC U12 Plus that will show off its translucent design, and we'll talk about all that and more right after this. And with the vote to spare indeed. Yeah, so this is exciting. I don't know, if everyone is following this. I certainly hope that you are. If you enjoy things like YouTube and Netflix and, communicating on the internet without people charging you based on who you're communicating with. It's a bizarre concept, and unfortunately there is a great deal of misinformation out there about this. And what's happening really is that, if you spread enough disinformation, you confuse people and you can actually get them on a completely opposite side of a topic or an argument or a dispute when it's not even in their best interest. It's freaky how that works, but we have a lot of people who think that they know what they're talking about. They don't dig very deep, and then they go on TV or radio or any other medium and start speaking out against something that doesn't make sense. So hopefully, if you saw the quote at the beginning of the video, that was from Tim Berners-Lee, kind of informally known as the father of the internet. And what he said is that if we ever lose net neutrality and Europe still had it, and he was thinking about starting a company, that would possibly be enough of a reason to leave the United States completely. If we lose that freedom that we have, and we have to start saying, well, if I want to hear this person's version of a story, or if I want to watch this streaming service, then I have to pay extra money. But, unfortunately for cable companies, they are probably the second least liked organization in the country. Congress apparently is first, and I'm not sure that every member of Congress deserves that. But, as a governing body, obviously it's a tough job, tough position to be in. But cable companies, I think, have earned the recognition or the spite or, the hatred that they get. They've done this willfully, and as technology has evolved, they've realized that the information or the entertainment that they want to deliver to us can be gotten other ways. So what would be the smart thing to do? If you had a competitor, if you were a big cable company and you saw that people were getting things on the internet and saying, I don't really need your cable service anymore. I can watch all this stuff streaming through the web. You could say, hey, this would probably be a good time to acquire or to create our own content, or acquire that content that people are creating and be able to deliver that to our customers so that everyone's happy. But instead, they have decided to use funding to push lobbyists to say, hey, what we really need to do is to be able to pick and choose what people can watch, whether they get it from us or not. We're going to deliver their internet now, and we get to decide what they see on the internet. And, to the point where I got to be honest, I have cable in my house. And if these companies played nice, I would be much more likely to buy their products and services. But purely based on this whole net neutrality movement, every time I purchase and I'm getting ready to add HBO to my lineup, instead of buying HBO through my cable provider's package, I'm going to get HBO through another means, through another streaming service, because I don't want that revenue to go to an organization that supports this kind of legislation. If they just said, hey, you know what, here's your, there's a data cap, we're going to charge you for faster speeds, we're going to charge you according to how much you use, that's one thing. But when you start picking and choosing what you want citizens to have access to, it's just crazy. So we got it through the Senate, and obviously when there's any kind of vote in Washington, it's going to be a certain amount of influence is coming from large corporations that have lots of money to spend. And it's also going to be upcoming elections where people like to be able to step out and say, hey, I voted in favor of that thing you liked, So I know that it's questionable as to the motives behind a lot of these people who voted in the Senate. I'm happy that it happened. The next step, of course, is go to the House of Representatives. And even if, although it, being controlled by the Republican Party, which seems to be less in favor of net neutrality, it seems less likely that it will pass the House. But even if it does, then it's got to go to have Mr. Trump sign off on it. And, knowing the history of both parties, it kind of seems that whenever someone comes into office, they don't like what the person who was there before them did, if it was one of their opponents, if it was someone from a different political party. So you would almost think the fact that Ajit Pai, who now heads the FCC, was appointed by Barack Obama, you kind of think that Donald Trump would automatically not like him, but instead he has made him the head of the FCC. So once again, when it comes to President Trump, it's very difficult to predict what he's going to do next. And again, I'm looking far into the future, but even if this doesn't get through the House, and even if it does get through the House and it doesn't get signed off in Washington, then we still have several states that are putting forth their own efforts to pass net neutrality at the state level. So no matter what happens with the FCC, they can prevent these providers from stepping in and interrupting whatever kind of services that you have, because they want to pick and choose what you get access to. So we shall see. Thank you, Noisy Cameras, for the net neutrality. In fact, let me do this before I forget. I like to have my chat, and it's not showing up, so something is not configured properly. Let's see if we can get this thing to work right quick. I thought I had it all, and for some reason, oh, there we go. That's bizarre. Why is there such a lag on the comments? And then they disappeared. Okay, there we go. That wasn't me. That was YouTube this time. I thought Al Gore invented the internet. I thought so also. Apparently he was involved in it in some capacity, but I don't think he actually invented it. Free 30-day HBO trial now through Roku, Google Play, 7 days from Amazon channels. Please, folks, if you're thinking about getting HBO or any other premium service, consider using one of these alternatives to your local cable company, because I can tell you, if it is any of the larger companies out there, they are indeed in favor of repealing or have repealed net neutrality. So any money that we give to them is going to be spent on things that are used against us. So that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, by all means, you can get it through Roku, Google Play, Amazon channels, anywhere else. And until net neutrality is completely gone, which I believe goes into effect on June 11th, we won't really see what those repercussions are. But it will be interesting if all of a sudden your HBO starts running slower if you're not buying it from your cable company. But I would love to be able to have some numbers and show people, look, this is what happened. Use a VPN and McDonald's Wi-Fi, problem solved. And I believe that if there were any way to buy stock in VPN companies. If there are any publicly traded VPNs or startups out there, now would probably be a good time to invest. It seems like VPNs will experience a huge degree of growth if we don't get the repeal of net neutrality reversed or dispersed or whatever the proper term is for that. So yeah, consider a VPN and consider if you can, investing in one. And my understanding is that you can actually configure your own VPN somehow. I'm not that computer geeky, but I've been told that if you're running, I want to say it's Linux, there's a way that you can set up your own VPN and you don't have to necessarily pay an outside service in order to do that. And that way your ISP can't say, oh, we see that you're watching HBO, but you're not getting it from us. So now we're going to throttle whatever that service may be. Although there's always a possibility that they may start throttling anything that goes through a VPN. I really don't know, but I wouldn't put it past them. Greg M. Hey, Harvey, I didn't even realize that was your content. Your comment. How are you? Greg M. What's going on? I have basic cable here, and I watch it as much when I had 3 OTA channels for 3 years. They may have to do a discharge position in the house. Well, I don't know exactly how that works. I know that after it goes beyond the Senate, it's got to pass in the House, so I believe they vote on it. I'm not sure exactly how that works. Oh, you want chat? That'll be an extra $50. Yeah, it's funny. Every time I start talking about net neutrality, there is almost always some problem with my upload, some technical issue with my stream, and I have always written that off as coincidence. It's weird how often it happens, but look at this. Look what I have today, folks. I have my iPhone 8 that about 10 minutes before the start of this stream decided to start boot looping. I have no idea why. Just out of the blue, it's Apple shut down, and it's been repeating this, for a while, and I imagine it will until the battery dies, and I've plugged it in, and having it on the charger for a while doesn't help, so I'm definitely going to have to open it up, but it's not like anything funny has happened to this phone, so just out of the blue, not working anymore. Irony. Stats for Nerds says live latency is under 8 seconds. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, Tech for Your Needs. Good to see you. How's it going? HBO Canada is owned by one of the incumbents here. Oh, well, that's scary. Some channels I watch on YouTube advertise for Tiger Stream. Looks cool if you like to watch TV and movies. I will have to check that out. All right, so let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing any comments here that are directed towards me, and sometimes I even answer the ones that aren't meant for me. That's just kind of the result of my attempts at multitasking. The iPhone wanted to be on the live stream today. That's why, yeah, exactly. Put it into recovery mode and update without data loss. Oh, yeah, but I don't want to update. That's the thing. That's probably what I will have to end up doing. I've held off on... Actually, I take it back. This iPhone 8 is updated. It's my iPhone 7 that I still got on 10.3, and it's staying there because it works great as is. So let's go over here real quick because I'm going to talk too much about one topic and not make it through all the others. If you didn't know this, and I got to admit, I did not even think about this because I'm not even sure I've ever held one of these in my hand before, but the first essential phone is where the notch came from. Now, it is not as noticeable, it's not as big as the notch on the iPhone 10 or most, pretty much any other phone that is coming out with a notch now. We see a lot of Android phones that are going to have notches in them. Some saying that they're not doing it because of the iPhone 10. Some say that, yes, they are blatantly copying the iPhone 10. But Apple's certainly not the first company to ever include a notch in its phone. There's one that you can't see because I don't have the browser open. So here we go. So this is the first gen essential phone, and they are already working on a way to get rid of the notch. So going a completely opposite direction from everyone else. And they have, in fact, filed for a patent here that says that they would be able to design an LCD screen made out of elements that are mostly transparent. One could place the camera. Stop doing that. I hate pages that do that on me. Where were we? Why do you jump around like that? One could place the camera below a substantially transparent part of the screen and have the phone disable that part of the screen when a photo is taken. Now, this all sounds good, but my question is, why is this this is going to make me insane. Why do pages do this? I'm just about fed up. I'm going to start copying plain text every story and forget about using a browser here. I can't get the screen to stay in one spot. So the question is this, if you have a screen made out of materials that's transparent enough to put a camera behind, Look at this. I'm not even touching it. It's just jumping all over the place. I'll do a screenshot next time, I guess. Why would you ever have to have I mean, you could put everything underneath the screen. You could have front-facing camera. You could have Face ID hardware. You could have the ambient light sensor. You know, everything could be behind the screen. However, if you look at God, I cannot stop this thing from moving, guys. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe if I just kind of roll it up and down for a second. So my question is, if you look at this image, it looks like the upper area of the screen is going to be slightly different. That's the impression that I get, so that will allow the camera to take pictures through the screen. But I would suspect that would affect the image quality on that area of the screen when you're watching, you know, viewing something, watching a video or anything like that. I may be completely wrong about it, but they also say in this article that another way that they could address this is that if there were color filters built into the camera itself. So on your front-facing camera, you would have special filters built in. Okay, sorry, I'm going to turn that part off because this thing, it's got a mind of its own. It's floating all over the place. So what they're saying is that you could have some color filters inside the front-facing camera that would filter out any of the distortion that's caused by the LCD itself. So it would say, you know, say there's a heavy blue coming through, you would have a blue filter that would remove that, and then when you take your pictures, everything would look cool. I think it's awesome that Essential is going this direction. You know, it's unfortunate they have such a small market share. But phones like this, the Vivo Apex, and apparently the Mi Mix 2 phone are all looking at doing this, you know, in similar manners. However, Essential filing for a patent of some special type of design to make this happen. I don't know that it's actually ever going to materialize. That is the other thing about patents. You know, you see people file patents for all sorts of different designs, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're creating a product that you and I will ever see in our lifetimes. A lot of times it means that they came up with an idea that they don't want someone else to steal, or they're going to patent troll it and just, you know, acquire the patent and then say, okay, if anybody wants to make this product, you can just buy the patent from us. And, you know, I wouldn't say that is a nice way of doing things, but there's certainly a lot of that going on out there in the world. So any Essential phone owners on the stream, I'm curious. I have not had the opportunity really to do anything with those phones, and I'm curious as to how they perform. And, you know, obviously they didn't take off really well, and that could be for a number of reasons. You know, at this point, Apple and Samsung just dominating the market so much that they generate the money to put into advertising. Can you put it in reader mode? Let's see. Too many widgets and crap on the mainstream websites these days. Oh, yeah, you know, that's a good question. Can I put it in reader mode? Let's see. Maybe. You know, I have my screen cut down so far at this point that let's see. Let's see if I can. Is there a way to do it? I'll tell you what, if the next browser window gives me that problem, I'll certainly figure out a solution for that. That is so annoying. Yeah, and it drives me nuts because, you know, I don't want to use ad blockers. I want people who create content to be compensated for their efforts. You know, if we don't have advertising, then eventually we don't have any good content. You know, that's the bottom line. I know that ads are annoying, but I will tolerate a certain amount of advertising if you don't get crazy with it. And that's what some of these websites are doing. They go so overboard that you are just trying to find the content. Like, you can't even locate it because there's so much stuff popping up in your face. And another thing that I noticed, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but iPhones seem to have a real problem with YouTube. If I pull up, if I'm looking at YouTube and I'm, trying to view a bunch of video titles, what I get is a whole bunch of stuff just overlapping. Now, it was on my 8. For some reason, my 7 doesn't do it. That's interesting. But usually when I'm if I'm trying to find YouTube videos on my iPhone 8, all the titles are kind of mashed together so the words overlap each other, and I don't know why that is, but it is quite annoying. The Apple Watch has an ambient light or proximity sensor under the screen, around the middle part of it, so it shouldn't be too difficult to make on a phone. I wouldn't think so. Yeah, autoplay videos, we need to have the same option in Chrome just to mute autoplay, unless we already do. Maybe we do. But I have to go through and mute all this stuff before I ever open them up. Looks like LCD looks like I'll be skipping the Essential phone too. Well, I think that I need to double check. Didn't we decide that the rumor or the leak was that Apple's going to have most of their phones OLED, but one LCD phone still? I'm not sure. Harvey, Mike, when will YouTube give you a sponsor button on your channel? I don't know, Harvey. Is that like an option where, I don't know what that means, to be honest with you. What is a sponsor button? If you're, for gamer channels, I got you. Okay, so yeah. I see that right after that, Noisy Cameras answered your question. Yes, this is a funny thing. I am seriously considering a completely separate channel for gaming, specifically for that reason, because gamers get a few perks on YouTube that every other publisher doesn't. I don't know why that is, but to my knowledge, it's not something they're going to be doing anytime soon. So that would be a cool feature to have, but apparently you have to become a gamer. So I am brushing up on my StarCraft 2 skills as we speak, or actually after the stream tonight, but I'm not very good, so I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I'll have to figure out another way to be more entertaining and not rely on winning, because that is a tough game to master or to get really good at. Let's see. So next up, we have this, which would be a really cool phone. And if you want to talk about pushing the limits of how much people are willing to spend, AT&T, and the funny thing about this article is they kind of contradict themselves from the title to the end, and I'll show you why in just a second. But what it says here is that AT&T Verizon, why is there a comma there? It should be and. AT&T and Verizon will sell the Red Hydrogen 1 holographic phone. Last thing they tell you in this article is they are not sure that it's going to be going to Verizon. It says Verizon won't sell it until later this year, and then it said somewhere down here Verizon might end up dropping plans to sell it at all. So that's a bit misleading, I think, in the title here. They're saying AT&T and Verizon, but we don't even know for sure if Verizon will. However, what we think is going to happen is that we will have, if you haven't heard of Red, they're more known for cameras than anything else. I mean, that's what they do. They make some incredible cameras, video cameras, at a fairly reasonable price. You know, if you compare it to a full-on Hollywood type of video camera, Red makes something a little more affordable. I think they're somewhere around the $5,000 range, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look it up, but they are getting into the phone game, at least to some extent. They are talking about an Android running Snapdragon 835, which is interesting, but it's the display that is what's going to make this phone stand out. So they are talking about a 4-view display, or 4V, that is better than 3D, does not require glasses to view, and check this out. It is supposed to be, and also the name, the holographic display comes from a partnership with HP spinoff Leia Inc. Yes, just like Princess Leia, because, well, obviously, the first holographic image most of us probably ever saw came from the original Star Wars movie, if you're as old as I am. So in 4V mode, the screen dims and images appear to pop out from the phone. Part of the reason the Hydrogen 1 is so mysterious is that you can't experience the display over the internet. Your monitor or phone screen doesn't have this holographic text, so you just see a flat image. Red says everyone who has seen the 4V display in person gasps, swears, or just grins. So I'm not sure how to take that last one, but it will retail for $1,200 for the standard aluminum model, and if you want the titanium version, you're looking at $1,600. So unless Apple comes out with something a lot more expensive than the iPhone 10, and as far as we know, it sounds like they may be reducing the price slightly on that one. This might be one of the most high-end phones that you're likely to have access to. Now, I know that there are some crazy phones out there, at least there were when Vertu was making titanium phones, and I think that there are some special editions. I know there was a special edition Ferrari, what was a Huawei or something like that was just ridiculous, but this is more, I don't want to say mainstream, but more within the reach of the average consumer if they want to part with that kind of money. But $1,600, and of course, if you buy a $1,200 phone and you finance it, you can get that down to around $50 a month. And that's how you get people to swallow these ridiculous pills, by just saying, hey, don't worry, we'll break it up over a long period of time. If you invest in a $1,600 phone, and I don't say this to too many people, but I think at a certain point, a lot of people would ask whether or not I thought that protection plans, phone insurance, Apple Care, any of that kind of stuff is worthwhile. And in most cases, personally, I would say no, unless you're known for damaging your equipment. If you drop your remote or your keys or your sunglasses quite often, those are the people that I tell, hey, do you often break other things in your life? Because if you do, then in many cases that is a worthwhile investment. For the most part, I would say if you're buying a $300, $400 phone, if it's going to cost you an extra $100, that's quite a bit to add on to the price tag there. However, when we get into $1,000 phones, and I know this goes against, you'd expect someone who's in the repair business would always discourage customers from insuring their devices because we want to repair them, right? Well, at the same time, we always want to do what's best for the customer. And if you're buying a $1,000 phone, I think I would encourage just about anyone to have some sort of protection on it, and the unfortunate thing is that often these protection plans come with a deductible, so you pay $100 up front and then you pay another $200 or $300 in the deductible if you break something like a screen, and at that point you realize that it's not really a good investment. So if it's possible to buy, to rent, I should say, maybe get a protection plan for the first couple months until replacement parts are available for a phone, that's probably the best way to play the game. Now, if you get locked into a 1-year agreement for something like Apple Care, then I don't know that there's any way to cut it short and get a refund. So you're kind of obligated to that entire term, which I don't know is right for everyone. But again, if you're buying a $1,000 phone, $1,200 phone, $1,600 phone, I would at least make sure that your homeowner's insurance covers it, because sometimes it will. And also, if you have one of those special credit cards, I know at one point in time American Express would give you coverage on electronic devices when you purchase them. So that's something to consider as well. It's not always going to the carrier or the manufacturer for the protection plan that makes sense. Sometimes there are other options. But I would say, yeah, if you have a 24-karat Nokia banana phone, I'd probably consider getting some coverage on that. So that was the Huawei Porsche edition. Okay, thank you, Tech, for your needs. I couldn't remember who it was. Certainly not something I'll be buying anytime soon, but pretty cool, no doubt. Mike, what's going on? Just shout Leroy Jenkins. You're good. Well, let's see. Especially if you are financing the phone, since you are on the hook for paying off the phone, I think if it's unrepairable, that's a really unfortunate position to be in if you don't have some sort of insurance on your phone or some sort of coverage, and you lose, it gets lost or stolen, or you break it beyond repair, and then you're paying for that thing for the next 2 years and you can't even use it. Yeah, that's a painful reminder every month that you should have been more careful, or you should have protected it in one way or another. But again, if you're a homeowner or you have any sort of renter's insurance or some type of insurance, be sure to check with those companies first, because in some cases they will cover equipment that's worth a certain dollar amount. You have to tell them that you have it, and again, you may have some sort of protection with your credit card company. That is certainly worth looking into, because as you can imagine, when it comes to protection plans, just like any other, any insurance for that matter, it really is a gamble. It's a matter of putting money into something, and really the only way you win is if you have to file a claim, because if you don't, then your money is going to pay off the claims of other people who were a little more careless, or had less fortune than you did and ended up breaking their equipment. So it sucks. I know that we are required to have certain types of insurance, in this country. Now, if you want to drive a car or, be a citizen, you have to have either auto insurance, at least liability, and you have to have some sort of healthcare insurance. So they haven't imposed phone repair insurance on us yet, but if you have a $1,000 phone, I'd certainly think about doing something like that. As long as you pay your monthly cell phone bill with them. Oh, that's a good one. Noisy Cameras pointed out that some credit card offers insurance as long as you pay your monthly cell phone bill with them. Why not? Just turn around and pay off your credit card bill every month, right? I like that idea. Breathing insurance coming up. Yeah, exactly. So in any case, this looks like a cool phone. I'm going to predict fearlessly that it probably won't sell too much, just because it's such a specialty. Red, for camera enthusiasts, this is probably the phone to have, but I couldn't imagine too many people buying this, unfortunately, especially with a, really not the top of the line processor. They're talking about a Snapdragon 835. I don't know that we have any of the other specs on here just yet, but the other thing being that, we've seen 3D phones. I mean, this is considered 4D holographic, but we've seen 3D phones in the past, and they haven't really gone over all that well. In fact, I remember having an LG phone that, what was that thing called? It was a 3D phone. You didn't have to wear glasses to use it, but man, it gave you a headache after a few minutes, and really it was just pretty much a gimmick. I mean, the novelty wears off pretty quick. They did have a really cool golf game and a driving game built into it when you got it, but again, after using it for about 10 or 15 minutes, it started to give you a headache. So you had to have it at a certain distance, and you had to look at it the right way, and it just really wasn't practical. I don't know that a 4D phone that has holographic images is going to be a selling point for the long term. The fact that it's made by Red is cool, and I am surprised that they didn't really focus on the camera more than anything else. Having a reputation for making incredible video cameras, that would have been my selling point. Let's put an awesome video camera into this phone, make it better than anything else out there, and put the Red brand name on it, and I think that would have been a much better selling point than having a holographic image. But I have been wrong before, so maybe this will be the next big seller. We never know. It's a Snapdragon 835 because they took a year to make it. Maybe they'll wait a longer and upgrade to 845. Maybe they'll bundle it with the Red camera purchases, and that would probably be their move if they can't sell this thing. Maybe they'll say, well, it'll be a good way to promote sales of another product. That's a good idea, actually. Noisy Cameras, you should send them an email and recommend that they send us both one to demo, so we can create some videos with it, and then recommend that they include it when you buy a Red camera because, it's only an extra $1,200, right? Red phone has a bunch of attachments to it. That's the main selling point. Okay, gotcha. So there are ways to set this up to make it easier to use for recording video, I would imagine. This is all I got right now, but we'll see, right? Everyone should get into the phone game and create more competition. Okay, are you ready for this? We have leaked pics of the HTC U12 showing off a translucent design. Geez. Excuse me for 1 second, folks. I will be back in a flash. These allergies are relentless. I can't seem to take enough pills to not knock me out and still solve the symptoms at the same time. Hey, Johnny Chang, what's going on? So here's the thing. We have a 4K display phone. Yeah, I'm going to get into that in a minute, and I think it is the HTC U12. It's actually the WQHD, I think. Yeah, sort of. Not exactly, but I've got this sinus thing going on because of my allergies, and I don't want to make any of you suffer through that with me. So here's the thing. They're talking about a translucent hardware that allows you to see inside of the phone. And I can only imagine this looks something like those, someone taking the back cover off of their Galaxy phone and scraping all the paint off and putting a piece of glass on the back. Personally, I think it looks terrible, but I look at the inside of phones all day, so then maybe that's just me. To other people, it might be kind of cool to see what hardware is on the inside of the phone. But, personally, I think HTC has made these incredibly cool-looking phones. They've made mistakes in a lot of other areas, but for the most part, the design of their phones, they're sexy. I mean, they make great-looking phones. Everything probably from, like, the 8X and up, and a lot of the M series, they look like really cool phones, but talking about putting a translucent cover on this thing, I don't know. Maybe it's something different and people will get excited about it. I don't know it's a good idea, but I suspect that HTC is really trying to come up with something to get them back into the game, because if they keep going the direction they've been, that is not a successful one in the handset market. So, obviously they've got their hands in other things. They're doing virtual reality stuff and doing very, very well with that. But with phones, they've been struggling for a long time. So maybe this is just an idea to do something different, I guess. I don't know. I just can't imagine a lot of people getting excited about a translucent phone. It might be interesting at a party to go, oh, cool, that's what the inside of the phone looks like. But after that, do you really want to see, when you're talking on the phone, do you think people, you want to show them that you've got a battery and a whole bunch of components on the inside, or some weird looking metal shield? Or with HTC, it'll look like somebody took a bunch of spaghetti and shoved it into the phone in the the wiring. I don't know. In any case, Evan Blass, got his phone on a full spec sheet, supposedly for the U12 Plus, and says that they are talking about WQHD Plus, which is a step beyond HD, and in fact has quadrupled the number of pixels compared to a 720 display. Arguably, this is a waste of technology, because if you're looking at something like a phone screen, even people with perfect vision are probably not going to be able to appreciate the high definition that you'll get at this level on something that size, because it's so small. I mean, how many, you get down to a certain point and you cannot perceive the difference in one pixel to the next. So I'm not sure that this is a good investment. It is going to be an LCD, so there's another one that a lot of people may not be happy about. Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 processor, 6 gigs of RAM, and either 64 or 256 on the storage, which is interesting because there's nothing in between. It's not like 64, 128 or 128, 256. You got 64 and then jumps all the way up to 256. But it does come with a 3500 milliamp hour battery, which I imagine we will need for that type of processor, especially on a high resolution screen like that. 2 cameras on the back, one 12 megapixel, one 16 megapixel, and 2 8 megapixel front-facing shooters. There's also IP68, so if you thought any of the older HTCs were hard to open, I imagine this one might be as well. We'll see. Android Oreo with a promised update to Android P. You should probably establish something more than a promise before you start selling on any of that stuff. New touch-sensitive buttons, and always on listening for both Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, which means that with that feature enabled, I'm sure that your battery life is not going to be as good as it would be if you don't activate it. We'll find out next week on May 23rd when HTC officially launches the phone, but at this point, it seems like we know quite a bit about it, and I'm sure that a lot of this is intentional. And, good luck to you, HTC. I really hope that you can stay in the game, but up till now, it doesn't seem like they've really found something that gets people excited. There are some loyal HTC customers out there, and, I don't knock them at all. Their phones traditionally have not been fun to work on, but they're nice phones when they're in working condition. But beyond that, they haven't seemed to been able to grab much of the market share, so who knows, maybe that will happen. Yeah, WQHD is 1440. I thought they said it was 4 times what 720 is, last I read. Install the voice assistants and then let them fight with each other. That would be an interesting conversation. I've been wanting to do that for some time, like get Google Assistant and Alexa and Siri to have like a 3-way conversation, and that's consistent where they talk to each other. I think somebody's probably used that for a video by now. I would love for HTC to send us test products to review. Cool. That would be that'd be a lot to ask for probably, but hey, I'd be happy to do it too. What about a two-way interface, some humongous sensor the size of the display to take UHD selfies and act as an output at the same time? That could be interesting. Let's see. I think that was most of it for HTC. So again, we'll see next week, and we will definitely be talking about that one when it hits. And if any of you have any information to add about the HTC that I don't know, please speak up. Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak says, we have lost our privacy. And I have to agree with him. I don't think that, and obviously Woz has been around for a while. Let's see, I think they don't have a picture of him on here. In any case, he's probably older than me. So, lived in a different world, and things have certainly changed a lot. And really, the way that technology has evolved, I don't think it's realistic. Look at this ad. This is insane. Would you just not do that, please? I can pause it, but I can't get rid of it. That's lovely. Okay, I'm going to close this one too, because this is just ridiculous. I need to it's getting worse. Like I've had these under control in the past, and now they sneak up on me and start putting ads in when I'm not expecting it. Oh, and there's another one. Would you please stop? God, that's annoying. Hey, John Cassidy, what's happening? Good to see you guys all this evening. So Steve Wozniak, the brains behind Apple, arguably. I mean, when it comes to the tech part, when it comes to creating and writing the code and that kind of stuff, I think he was the guy that made it happen, right? He's the most laid-back technology guru around besides Richard Stallman. And yes, we all know that Steve Jobs had a reputation for getting things done, for motivating people, if you want to say that, and for coming up with great ideas as to, what to put into a device, what to present it, ergonomics, that kind of thing. But Wozniak credited as being the guy who figured out how to make that stuff happen. So, in my opinion, kind of the brains behind the operation, whereas Steve Jobs was more the front-facing guy who also did a lot of the managing at Apple. In any case, so he says we've lost our privacy. I'm bothered by what technology has become, he said when asked about data scandals like the Cambridge Analytica leak and cybersecurity threats to elections around the world. We've lost our privacy and it's been abused. He has also applauded the European Union for its efforts to claim back taxes from major companies. The EU has ordered Apple to pay Ireland $15 billion after regulators determined that the country had granted it illegal tax breaks. And Apple, of course, is appealing that ruling. The interesting thing is that towards the end of this article, he also says that he's really not worried about artificial intelligence, which strikes me as interesting. But at the very end of it here, what he says is you've got to give some. Let's see. Let me make sure I read the right quote here. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Wozniak, where did you go? Well, this advertising thing has got me all screwed up here. In any case, what he said essentially was that taking a look at what we have as far as artificial intelligence goes right now, and the fact that you'd have to build out physical, not beings, but robots or whatever you want to call them, androids with artificial intelligence built into them that could potentially threaten humans. He said he thinks we're quite a ways away from that, talking about it being in the hundreds of years from now, which really surprised me because if you take a look at Boston Dynamics and what they're doing with robotics and then compare that to Google Duplex and just think about putting those two things together. Boston Dynamics now has a robot, if you haven't already seen them, that can run, like it can literally run like a human being. And it's got arms and legs and a head and everything else. And they have one that does flips and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then if you listen to that Google Duplex demo where they hold a conversation that would technically pass the Turing test. So it's artificial intelligence sophisticated enough to fool people into thinking that they're talking to another human being, and of course having access to a neural network which gives them basically unlimited information potential. I would, who am I to say so, but I'm really surprised, and if you ask for my amateur opinion on this subject, I don't think that we're 100 years away from artificial intelligence that is, like an iRobot level of sophistication. But who knows? Maybe there are some difficulties in getting those two technologies together that I'm not aware of. Let's see. I would be very happy with 0.01% of that 1 billion. Yeah, you and me both. Has anyone followed HBO Westworld TV series? Been following? In fact, Johnny, I'm glad you brought that up because I watched the entire first season and then I canceled HBO because of my ISP, but I will be subscribing to it through one of the mediums that was mentioned earlier on today. So I am going to have to catch up. So please, no spoiler alerts on Westworld. I love that series and I need to binge watch it. I might even wait for the entire second series to end because I hate waiting for the next episode. And when it's available, I go in and stream it and watch it all within like 2 weeks. So yeah, that is a crazy sci-fi out of control series that really I don't think is that far away. I mean, we've got so much out there already. And I know I keep bringing up the same companies. I'm sure that Boston Dynamics isn't the only one that's working on this type of technology where we have robots that can move around on their own and have batteries built into them that they don't have to lug around this huge battery pack. But the AI, I think, is going to get there probably before the robotics do. But once artificial intelligence gets to that point, and it is rapidly evolving, that might be what figures out how to make the robotics happen. And that's where we have to make sure, I think, that we stay in control and have some, I don't know if you want to call it a kill switch or, some way to say, okay, we need to shut the program down or we need to make alterations, and it can't get to the point where it's smart enough to do that on its own and say, no, we don't want to have that upgrade done. We're going to do our own upgrades and start thinking for ourselves. Maybe I'm crazy, but yeah, the robots on. Oh, hey, Carl Laterno, how are you? The robots on the Westworld series. Yeah, if we get to that, that's going to be a strange place to live, strange time to live in. Robot Assassin Whodunit. At least Amazon doesn't have robotic deliveries yet. Thank you, Harvey. Yes, that's yet. They will have drone delivery soon, and I have a feeling it won't be long after that. Let's see. Then you have a week to read all the theories. Yeah, please don't give me any spoilers. I need to watch Westworld, but I want to get caught up all at once and not know what's happening. The Boston Dynamics is more scary than the Cylons of Battlestar Galactica. No kidding. If for one thing the machines can beat us is that they can act their part without flinching an eyelid. That is a good one. And the first thing that came to mind for me is that with this Google Duplex making telephone calls, one of the worst things, if you've ever had to do telemarketing in your life, it's not fun. No matter what, it eventually comes down to the fact that we are human, we have emotions, and you can't say that anything that you do today is completely unaffected by any positive or negative experience that you had prior to that. If something happens to you right now and you're asked to put on a smiling face and it was something not to smile about, that's going to affect you in some manner. But if we listen to Google Duplex, someone could yell at that thing, cuss at it, hang up on it, do whatever you want all day long, and it's not going to affect the performance. If you set that thing up as a telemarketer, its performance will not be affected one bit. In fact, if anything, it is going to get better at what it does by gathering information and understanding how people respond to its actions. So, you take the humanity out of something and it becomes far more efficient, far more effective, and of course at the same time, it is not human. So that is a weird one. Does anyone remember the first regular robot on TV from Lost in Space series? Oh gosh, yes. That was, I'll tell you what, I remember the original Dr. Smith too, and I like him a lot better than the new one. In fact, the acting overall on that series, as much as I wanted to see a Lost in Space reboot, the acting on that series is kind of, But Dr. Smith, I really, and it's unfortunate because Parker Posey is a good actress or actor or whatever term you care to use, but the part that she plays in that is just, I don't know, there's something weird about the directing or about the way that she interpreted the character, I think. The old Dr. Smith, obviously much more campy, designed to be kind of, I want to say comedy relief, but still I think overall a better character than in the new version. That's just my personal opinion. I wanted the new Lost in Space robot to do something difficult with the flailing arms like the older one. Yeah, and that's the first thing I remember is Danger Will Robinson and him going around like this. But they certainly changed it, and the response has been that everyone loves the new robot. In fact, it's probably the one thing about the series that really stands out and people are into. So they are supposedly approved for a second season, and the producers were saying they were going to make another season regardless. They were so confident that before Netflix even okayed the second season, they were already going into production. So I think they've done a decent job with it overall. Again, some of the acting is a little off, but they make up for it with special effects, and the robot. I think it's kind of the star of the show. Also, technically, all living creature is a cybernetic creature unique on their own because they interact within a network and form part of a system, albeit biological in nature. And of course, that is when we start getting into the philosophical questions about artificial intelligence. We say that we are living beings and that we have a soul or that we're human or whatever. And who is to say that artificial intelligence doesn't evolve to a point where it matches by definition what being human is, right? That's the big question. That's where all sorts of things come to mind, where you start thinking, and we tend to think of ourselves as being so unique in the universe that nothing can ever be like us, nothing can be human the way that we are. And here's my question. If we want to talk about artificial intelligence, and I'm going to try not to let the clock get away from me today. If we want to talk about artificial intelligence, the Turing test is one thing. And, like you said, Johnny, technically you could have a a creature or a being or something, an entity that is not necessarily biological, and maybe still call it a life form, right? And I agree with that to an extent, but debatable, right? But my question is this: you can certainly develop AI that is sophisticated enough to pass the Turing test. Can you, however, create AI, or will AI ever evolve to the point where it has a sense of humor? And I mean a good sense of humor. And we all know that this is one of the things that even, amongst humans, we naturally have this sense of humor. It's difficult to define. It typically comes from combining two things together that don't make sense. If you look at any joke or any punchline or any humorous situations, in many cases what it comes down to is either the unexpected, the absurd, or something that completely conflicts or doesn't match up with another concept that you're kind of weighing together, right? And you combine them together, and the only thing that we have as a response is to laugh. Will we ever have an artificial intelligence that understands that you can't just combine two random things? There's some sort of science to it. There's some sort of method where comedians and writers and actors and other people, entertainers, can be funny, and they understand how to produce content that other people find humorous. But can a machine do the same thing? That's my question. And in my mind, that would be the one huge difference that I really question as to whether AI will ever reach the point where it can write humor that people think is funny, because so far I haven't seen it. Robots will be good at dad jokes. That's a good point. Everything reduced to their most simplest parts will be undistinguishable from non-living entities. It's more of a fun popcorn type of show. Yeah, talking about, you get me started on Lost in Space and Black Mirror and a lot of these other shows. I'll never stop. So irony is a feature exclusive to us humans. I think you're right. I think it's going to be difficult for AI really to understand that, because there's not really a science behind it, right? It's like either you get it or you don't, and it's difficult to say what makes it work. I think that's the next big challenge, I guess, for AI. So if you can convince me I'm talking to a person, okay, now convince me that you're a person with a sense of humor. And when you can do that, I'll really be scared. What if you could hop back and forth between cyber and biological thought, surf the net while you're sleeping, or something like that? Wow. That's pretty crazy, our Mike. And in fact, we already understand that our brains never shut off. When we're sleeping, our brains are still doing things, and we have an idea of what that is, but we don't know about all of it, because some of it may just disappear before you wake up, especially when you're thinking about things like dreams. Sometimes we remember parts, bits and pieces, but we probably don't remember all of it, and there are certainly other processes taking place while we're asleep, and when we wake up, we don't remember them happening. So maybe we plug into the Matrix at night. That would be a crazy one, but not out of the question. Phone tracking firm had a bug that let anyone track millions of Americans. Let's try this browser and see if they don't try to hijack me or do anything else crazy. This is a CNET, so hopefully they won't get weird with it. So I don't know if you guys have heard of this. There's a company that does business with your phone provider, whether it's AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon, whoever it is. Get this. Now, I don't know if you remember, but last year they passed a law that said that your ISP can collect all of your information, anything that goes through them, they can collect it and sell it to marketing firms. So if they want to know that you're on the internet browsing for new cars, they can collect that data and find people who are willing to pay for it, because then they can target you with their advertising. And I imagine anyone who has the money can also buy that information. Well, your phone does something similar. It goes through your carrier, and obviously you're attached to a network at all times, unless you're in airplane mode or you're out of the service area, and they can pretty much tell exactly where your phone is located. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that's where you are, but most of us have our phones on us, virtually 24/7. So your cell phone company, this is the weird one, okay? Your cell phone company in the US is not allowed to sell that information or to provide that information to the government or to my knowledge, to any law enforcement agencies without some sort of paperwork, whether it's a warrant or whatever it is. In legalese, they would have to have an order that says, we need to have access to this person's information. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but by law, they're not supposed to be able to do that. However, they can sell it to third-party marketing firms. So anyone who wants to know where your phone was located at any time of day can go to your carrier and they can purchase, according to this article, they can purchase that information and find out where you spend your time. Well, this company set up, let me find the name of it again. This company set up a website, LocationSmart, who apparently is not up and running. The website's not up and running anymore, but the way this worked is that you would go to that website and you could input your cell phone number. It would send you a text message, and then you agreed to the terms that said, I want to allow my location to be tracked. And from there, you could go through the website and see where your phone was at all times. And you could send a text message to one of your friends or family members, and they would approve it. And if so, they could tell exactly where your phone was located. Well, apparently it didn't take someone too long. It says 15 minutes. This gentleman, whose name I'm probably going to butcher, so I'm going to call him Robert. I think it's Chow or Chow. I'm never sure about that spelling with the X at the beginning. But he is a PhD student at Carnegie Mellon University's Human-Computer Interaction Institute. Said he found a bug within 15 minutes after finding LocationSmart's website. By then, he was certain LocationSmart had a flaw that allowed anyone with an elementary understanding of websites to track millions of people online without them knowing and free of charge. So you didn't even have to pay for this info. If you could figure out what he did, which again, he says an elementary understanding of websites, you could go to LocationSmart and figure out pretty much where anyone was as long as you have their phone number, their cell phone number. And that's why previously, when I read the statement that Steve Wozniak said about, we have lost our privacy, I don't think that's overstated at all. And things like this may not be okay. Officially, it might have been a mistake. It will probably, if it hasn't already been corrected, I'm sure it will. But these kinds of things, I believe, will continue to happen. It's going to be difficult for them not to. If the technology to do something exists, it's only a matter of time before that information gets out to all sorts of different people. So if you talk about something like Gray Key or Gray Shift or, LocationSmart or any of these other software companies that create this kind of stuff, it may be top secret and only privileged to certain parties for a period of time, but eventually it gets out and other people have access to it. So LocationSmart uses geolocation data it buys from major U.S. wireless carriers, including T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint. While wireless carriers aren't allowed, and I'm quoting the article here, aren't allowed to provide location data to the government, they have complete free reign to sell that data to other businesses, many which have taken advantage of this loophole. So, if you've seen all this creepy stuff like targeted advertising and said, how does this thing know where I am? I'm not logged into their service. I'm not searching for this in Google. I have no interaction. Where is it coming from? Well, if you spend a lot of time outside the pet store or in the vicinity of a certain type of, ethnic cuisine or whatever else, that information is being collected, and there are businesses that can buy that information from your carrier. So obviously, if they think it's going to be profitable, why wouldn't they want to know where the majority of customers spend their time? And I'm not saying that they would target specific people, but I'm sure if they find that a lot of people are trending to hang out at this location, then there must be something going on there, and there must be a way to deliver advertising content to them. So let your imagination go on that one. There was a second part of this, and I had actually read about this article prior to the LocationSmart one, and that was where a company called a shady company offering police cell phone location data was reportedly hacked, and this is Securus Technologies, and I'm reading this on Gizmodo. So a hacker has reportedly provided journalists with login credentials and other data stolen from the servers of Securus, a company that was recently revealed to be selling cell phone location information to U.S. law enforcement agencies without a warrant. So this is a completely different company that is collecting the same type of information. They were using this information to keep track of inmates. At least that was, what the story read. Let's see, they had a database of 2,800 Securus usernames. So here's the thing. Law enforcement or corrections was using this company to track inmate cell phone calls so they could tell who they were calling outside of whatever facility that they were incarcerated in. Well, this company apparently also collected the information of the people who were using the service to keep track. If I'm reading this correctly, they were using the service to keep track of what the information's doing, the inmates were doing, and their information was compromised on the website. So we're talking about government agencies, sheriff's departments, and local law enforcement, and you can already see how this could be a problem. If you are a member of law enforcement and all of a sudden your name, address, and telephone number is available to anyone who has access to this database, this could be a big problem. Let's see, New York Times reported last week that Securus had managed to gain people's location data via telecom companies through a service that allows customers to ping cell phones and exact their location via their proximity to cell towers. This capability is generally reserved for marketing purposes, as we talked about just a couple of minutes ago, or for companies that offer roadside assistance. However, the loophole has also enabled Securus to provide that same information to police without a warrant. So, like I said, if you think that because there technically needs to be paperwork in order for something to happen, hopefully you're not doing something you shouldn't be, because obviously that's not going to, or if you are doing something you shouldn't be, that's not going to shield you from the long arm of the law. But more importantly is that when law enforcement has to worry about their personal details becoming public, there's a real problem with this. And again, if we think we have privacy in this day and age, I believe that is a naive attitude to have. The technology exists. It will hopefully be used for the right purposes, but if it's out there, occasionally it's going to fall into the wrong hands. So I'm going to stop on that topic right there because I want to hear your comments on this one, and I know we're running out of time. Only have a couple minor things after this. Thank you, Noisy Cameras, for the announcement. That makes it so much easier so I can see. He puts the megaphones up there so that we can tell. I shouldn't even say he, she. I assume he, but I never know. So excuse me if I'm wrong on that. In fact, a lot of you who don't have your first names on here, I shouldn't always assume everyone on here is a guy. I know there's more guys talking about tech, but it's hard to know for sure. So thank you, Noisy Cameras, so much for putting that up there. It makes my life a lot easier. Securus, a company that helps cops track phones across the U.S. was... Oh, you just put that up there. Okay, so while I was talking, obviously, Greg M. added this. Subpoena. Yep, that's probably how a lot of companies wash private info, so the front-facing company can have deniability of buying customer data. Exactly. Couldn't agree more. Not sure if their tracking is that good. The other day I signed in and Twitter told me that someone is a 30-minute radius away from me signed in when it was from my phone. Well, is that Twitter though? Hey, Joshua Patrick, how are you? There you go. I am the government and I am a marketing company on my Wi-Fi network. Also, someone confirmed my suspicion that Google have different domain endings for their Gmail service. I tried several times logging in with the mistyped Gmail address and Facebook, and this still worked for some unknown reason. Interesting. Take the time to look at Google Analytics data. You would be amazed at the amount of wealth of info on you. Yeah, Carl, thanks for bringing it up. There is a way that you can see your Google history, your search history, your voice search history, all sorts of stuff. And I can't remember the exact URL that you go to, but if you search in Google how to find your Google history, you can see everything you've done since, I don't know what, like 2000, 2010, something like that. Let's see. Take the time to target new. I can't talk tonight. Let me try this again. Target new when gals were pregnant based off their purchases on their store cards. Yeah, exactly. Some customers don't like that, obviously. I wouldn't blame them. Hey, Johnny Chang, you got to take off. All right, good night. Good seeing you. Glad you could join us, as always. And yeah, so think about that for a minute. Weird stuff. And, mostly I think if you are a member of law enforcement, obviously if you were a member of government, think about someone who's a judge or anything like that, or maybe, a customs official or someone in the DEA. Their information, I mean, really all of our information should be kept private, but if you're a high profile figure, then definitely this kind of stuff shouldn't leak. And when it does, you have to really think twice about how reliable any of these companies can be. Even if they're trying to do the right thing, somebody hacks in and all of a sudden this stuff becomes public information. And if you've got a stalker out there or something, and it's scary. Anyways, let's move on here. Samsung, look at this guy's haircut. Okay, I'm glad that I have a gnat. I'm glad that this picture came up. This is from the Samsung commercial where they mock the iPhone X's notch, the headphone dongle, and other stuff. And it's kind of lame because I watched this commercial and I swear they were making fun of the lady who had an iPhone 6, which doesn't make a lot of sense at this point. And especially if you're going to make fun of the notch and make fun of the iPhone 6 at the same time, it doesn't make sense. But they go through how the iPhone 7 doesn't have a headset jack, which fair enough, right? But also that it doesn't have wireless charging, which obviously the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10 have wireless charging now, so that's no longer an issue. But my main question is, why, Samsung? Why do you continue to make phones that look like iPhones? I mean, fortunately, they're not doing the notch thing yet, right? But there was a saying when I was in sales, and that was, if you can't say anything good about your product, then most of the time you'll say something negative about your competitor. And what that tells your customers is that you're really trying to concentrate on pointing out the weak areas in your competition rather than focusing on what you have that makes you great. And I think that someone should send that suggestion or that information over to Samsung. They have plenty to be excited about. I mean, with the S9, they've got the fastest processor so far, and we go back and forth, right? Every year. At the beginning of the first, second quarter, whatever, Samsung launches their new product. They have the fastest processor on the market. And then in September, Apple does their thing and they make something better. And then, next year it goes back to Samsung and it goes back and forth. And you have the best, whatever flagship phone you buy, you've got the best thing on the market for 6 months until the next better one comes out, right? But why would you want to concentrate on making fun of your competitor's product when you have something that you can demonstrate what's great about it? What's so... I just don't get it. I don't get it. Why they would continue this type of advertising campaign. If you got something great, talk about that. Ignore the competition unless you feel threatened by them. That's really the only justification I can think of for talking, trying to trash talk your competitor, really. It's unfortunate. I really want to like Samsung. I've been an Android fan for a long time, and you guys see me, I'm still using an iPhone for other reasons at the moment, but I'd like to go back to Android. I don't think it'll be Samsung when I do, though. I don't understand the direction that they're taking. Trying to doing so many things that other people are doing and really just not doing their own thing. And then when you do this kind of advertising, I'm not sure that helps you. The new ad slams the iPhone X's notch design, the lack of a headphone jack, and much more. The ad is called Grow Up with an Upgrade to Galaxy. You're starting off all wrong there. Just don't tell me to grow up. That's kind of a silly thing to say because it sounds like you're talking down to your customers, aren't you? Grow up with an upgrade. Hey, why don't you grow up? When's the last time somebody told you that and it made you feel good about them or their product or yourself? Progresses through several past iPhone launches, mocking different features and changes along the way. The iPhone 3GS is mocked for its lack of storage space. The 3GS. The 3GS. When was the 3GS? What was that, like 2010, 2011? You guys are killing me. While the iPhone 5S is mocked for not supporting a stylus. Wow. For 2015, Samsung just shows a bunch of people standing in line in the rain. I could think of so many other things you could say about Apple that would demonstrate to people where they're lacking. I'm not sure that talking about the 3GS is a good place to start. But, whatever. Stop buying Apple and Samsung. Check out Motorola, HTC, OnePlus, and give LG another chance. Thank you. I'm actually thinking about Motorola. I would really like to see Motorola. And really, I haven't had a Motorola phone. I haven't used a Motorola phone that I didn't like. And that would probably be my next choice. You know, I'm disappointed by LG. I have to say they've had their share of software problems. HTC, I got to say personally, I'm opposed to their inner design. You know, and that's just talking as a tech. They make nice phones, but I really question their future as well. And obviously, ZTE and Huawei don't seem like they're going to be a good options in the near future. G5 Plus is quite good. Okay, well. Another one to consider for sure. But yeah, I don't think my next phone will be an iPhone or a Samsung device. That much I'm pretty certain of. Okay, guys, I'm going to try to wrap it up here real quick. I wanted to throw this in because I don't use vape anything. I don't vape, but if you do, be careful. There was a guy whose vape pen supposedly exploded and ended up launching some fragments into his head, into his cranium, and killing him. That's scary stuff. Now, we've heard about vape pens exploding before, and what typically happens is people don't use the correct charger, or there's some sort of other malfunction that causes the lithium-ion batteries inside them to explode. And when they do, it tends to happen while people have these things up to their faces. So as you can imagine, many teeth have been lost. And in fact, I want to say there was another guy, it says in the article actually, some other guy broke his neck somehow while using a vape pen. So down here at the bottom, what it said is under how did the device explode is that he was using a certain type. It's called a mechanical mod, and I'm not even sure what that means. Like I said, I don't use vape pens, but if you do, the mechanical mod appears to be the one you want to steer away from. And tragic, unfortunately here, that someone actually died from a vape pen. I think this is the first case, but yeah. Not something I'm going to get into, but if you do, I guess be careful. Don't use this type of mod. What did I just say it was called? Don't use this E mod. I just lost it. Gosh darn it. And definitely don't use any aftermarket chargers. There's supposedly a charger that comes with the pens. Here we go. It's a mechanical mod. So this mechanical mod apparently is the one to steer away from. Use the charger that comes with the pen, and don't buy anything that looks cheap and unstable, I guess. I don't know what the standard is really for vape pens, but the fact that these things can explode in your pocket, and I mean, that's scary enough, right? If you carry it like in your front pocket or in your face, it could be even worse. What's your first choice? Let's see. Honestly, I feel that overall the Moto Z2 Force is the best other than the Pixel 2. Okay, cool to know. I'm going to keep those in mind, and I just wanted to throw that last article in there because I think it's something everyone should know, especially if you use vape pens. Like I said, I don't, but or if you know someone who does, pass that on to them. They can cause some problems. I think that was it, folks. Only went 12 minutes over time. I'm going to get this down to an hour in the future. Maybe stick with Pax and Juul for those that do vape. Thanks. I wouldn't have known where to steer you for vape pens. Again, I don't use them, but don't do anything that's going to blow your face off, or just don't smoke. Yeah, that's probably the first choice. You know, the thing here is that people are saying that vape pens can be a way to quit smoking cigarettes, which I'm definitely in favor of. People, you know, if you don't know by now that smoking cigarettes is going to kill you, it's really only a matter of time. You know, not if, but when. Certainly anything that gets you off of those is a good idea, and ultimately you want to just not vape, not smoke, and not vape. But if you do choose to go this route, make sure you're using something safe, because you don't want this blowing up in your cranium. All right, folks, again, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to get out of here, let you go. Sorry I went over time again. Next time, I promise I'll get it down to an hour. That's my goal. And I will see you on Monday at 2 p.m. If not, back again next Thursday at 6. That's Pacific time. Talk to you later.